I have a question from Sage Collins 6131. Isn't consciousness limited by the things that actually exist, though? Since for consciousness to be conscious, there has to be something for it to be conscious of. Or is it just that it can control that something? Well, consciousness, the one conscious of these words, was conscious of itself prior to the appearance of these words. Consciousness by nature is conscious of itself. And that's what it is, consciousness. Consciousness is conscious. And being that all there is in consciousness is consciousness. Consciousness is self-conscious, but not in the embarrassed or egoic sense. The consciousness is simply conscious of itself, by itself. And that is consciousness's primary experience. So as these words appear, and as all phenomena appear, such as sensations, sense perceptions, the cosmos, all of those appearances arise subsequent to the already here presence of consciousness, which by nature is conscious of itself. So consciousness's consciousness of itself is independent of the appearances, the thoughts, the sensations, the perceptions. For all of those are not fundamental to the reality of our experience. Being that the reality of experience is consciousness. Consciousness is the only stable, ever-present, immutable, unchanging presence. The mind, the body, and the cosmos are intermittent phenomena. So being the reality, the only reality that we actually experience, that experiences itself, consciousness conscious of itself as the only reality that is. Its reality, its presence is present independent of the mind, the body, and the cosmos. For if we check carefully our experience of the mind, the body, and the cosmos, we see that they are appearances, nothing that constitutes the phenomenological structure of the mind, the body, and the cosmos is stable. The only stable reality is consciousness. The only ever-present reality is consciousness. So it is the only one. It is the only one. The only one present. So consciousness does not need something to be conscious of in order for it to exist. Just as this screen doesn't need the movie to appear in order for the screen to exist. The reality of consciousness is present as the screen in which the mind, the body, and the cosmos appear. So consciousness isn't limited by the things that exist, the phenomena. For consciousness is what it is, present prior to the appearance of all the things that exist, all the phenomena in the mind, the body, and the cosmos. So in consciousness is essential consciousness of itself, its essential reality. It is unlimited. There are no limitations there. All limitations are described by the structure of thoughts, sensations, and perceptions. Since all of those disappear and appear, that from which they appear and that into which they disappear is their fundamental reality and is as such independent of their qualities, not limited by their qualities. Just as this screen is not limited by the qualities of the images within it. So consciousness is not limited by any phenomena. And if you seem to find evidence that consciousness is limited by phenomena, what would that be? It would be a phenomena, like a thought, describing another phenomena, the sensation or perception, and claiming that such a phenomena is ever present and unchanging, and therefore fundamental to consciousness. But if we look at all phenomena, they are not ever present or stable or unchanging. So they cannot be attributes of or evidence of the nature of consciousness, being that consciousness is ever present. Just as we know that the image of Samuel on the screen is not intrinsic to the fundamental reality of the screen. So we see all apparent evidence of consciousness being limited as phenomena, as images that appear within the screen of consciousness. And therefore, they cannot limit consciousness. I have a question from the real me 1518. The real me, indeed. After watching a few of your earlier videos, just as you mentioned in one of them, letting the understanding sink in, I am able to turn my attention and kind of get a feel for the space that envelops every thought, action, and experience, good or bad. Is there movement from conceptual understanding to eventually embodying it when we remember to consistently turn our gaze towards this space? So it's important to recognize that when there is understanding about the nature of consciousness, that such an understanding is an experience, not a concept. For instance, to understand in this moment that consciousness is present, to truly understand that fact is to experience that consciousness is present. So to understand that the mind, the body, and sensory perceptions appear within consciousness is to experience them appearing in consciousness, to really understand them. Yeah, so by saying get a feel for the space that envelops every thought, sensation, and perception, to get a feel for that is already experientially understanding that thoughts, sensations, and perceptions appear within awareness. And so to turn your gaze towards that as consciousness, as awareness, to turn your awareness towards yourself and contemplate the fact that thoughts, sensations, and perceptions appear within awareness, to simply return to that experience, recognizing that you don't return, that it is always the case that thoughts, sensations, and perceptions appear within awareness. And if it seems like a sensation or a perception is outside of awareness, all that would be necessary in that moment is to check in what medium are thoughts, sensations, and perceptions appearing. Evidently, for a perception to appear, it must appear within a medium. And that medium must be that which is present prior to its appearance. So ultimately, the medium in which the perceptions appear, in which the sensations appear, in which the thoughts appear, is that which is ever present. So to return to the understanding that consciousness, awareness is ever present, that your true nature is ever present, it is the only candidate as the ultimate and fundamental medium of reality in which this perception appears, in which the sensation appears, in which the thought appears. So you could bypass any kind of elaborate technique to try to feel the perceptions, the thoughts, and the sensations within awareness and establish clearly the understanding and experience that awareness is ever present. It is the ever present and only ever present reality of existence. And from there, starting from that presence of awareness, notice that all of the appearances come from the only fundamental medium that is present, and that is awareness. There is no other medium of reality present. And so simply see the perceptions arise from this ever presence of awareness. What can happen when we try to feel the perceptions to be one with ourself is we try to fabricate a series of sensations that we believe correspond to the experience of oneness, of awareness and the perceptions. And we subtly believe that such a feeling is an indication that we are experiencing the unity of awareness and the perceptions. So oneness becomes seemingly dependent upon the appearance of a particular constellation of sensations, perhaps an expanded sensation into the space. Whereas in reality, to experience oneness, as this one awareness that is the ever-present reality of existence, is to simply, in a non-feeling, non-sensational, non-objective way, simply be aware of oneness. Not to change the content of the phenomenal experience in any way. For the oneness of awareness is not objective, it's not limited. So that oneness experiencing itself does not have any flavor of sensation intrinsic to it. It is independent of sensation and not limited by sensation. So instead of trying to feel one with the perceptions, simply recognize the oneness. Simply recognize that awareness is the ever-present reality, the only ever-present reality that you experience. And that everything that appears comes from that. See thoughts arise from that which is prior to them, awareness. See sensations arise from that which is prior to them, awareness. See perceptions arise from that which is prior to them, awareness. And notice that understanding these words, understanding this experience of everything appearing from awareness, is to experience oneness, independent of the content of sensations or perceptions. Whatever the sensation or perception or thought, it appears from the ever-presence of the reality of awareness. Kali 245 says, um, this mind is scrambling to conceptualize this direct pointing. So you're aware of the attempt to scramble to conceptualize the pointing. So from the perspective of awareness, there's no scrambling for awareness. Awareness is not scrambling to conceptualize these words. Awareness is aware of the mind attempting to conceptualize the experience of awareness. So see that awareness yourself is not trying or seeking to conceptualize, to grasp these words or grasp the experience of itself in terms of concepts. And allow the mind. This is not an invitation for a practice to allow the mind as if it's some kind of forcing or effort, but rather to notice that allowing is the nature of yourself, that you allow the mind effortlessly to do whatever it does, to scramble, to conceptualize. And see that understanding these words, the experience of yes, these words are true. This is my experience, is beyond the mind. It is beyond from beyond the mind as awareness that this confirmation of the truth is silently present. And the mind then utters, aha, this is true. So the utterance, aha, this is true, is not a prerequisite to the experience of the understanding of awareness, of your true nature. So any conceptualizing is not the essence of the experience of yourself. That being said, we are not in the business here of seeing the mind as an enemy, as a problem, as mischievous, as an entity separate from the reality that we are. So, having established awareness as yourself, being independent of the mind, not being limited by the mind, as that which is aware of the mind. Notice also that the mind arises from this presence of awareness and is ultimately made of this presence of awareness. So see this attempt from the mind as a playful endeavor to conceptualize what cannot be conceptualized. Like in poetry, for example, Rumi trying to express what cannot be expressed, to form the formless. And it's beautiful to watch the mind try to conceptualize this silent presence of reality that is infinite and eternal. That's why I love speaking. For the eye that loves speaking is reality itself, filtering through this human organism, expressing this silence in words, and knowing full well that everything that is said cannot ultimately encapsulate the source from which it originates. Yet the fun is trying to be as precise as possible. And that is the fun of intelligence, wisdom, and that intelligence and wisdom being the source of the mind. So see this attempt to scramble to conceptualize the experience of awareness as a playful, artistic endeavor, and know full well that whatever is painted on the canvas cannot ultimately express the space in which it appears. All the music that is played cannot ultimately express the silence from which it originates. And also to have a clear representation in the mind of pathways of reasoning that can be utilized to drop beliefs that are erroneous about the nature of reality is useful. 4, we can employ these lines of reasoning to quickly transition from a state of ignoring our true nature to experiencing in full clarity our true nature. So to conceptualize these pointings, or to even memorize these pointings, is to use the pathways that are expressed here as tools of inquiry that swiftly enable us to dissolve beliefs through understanding their falsity. And that is why the mind is useful. The power of conceptualizing is useful. Even to say the word reality or consciousness, being, these are words, concepts, but they refer to that in which they appear. They refer to that which is their substance. So in that sense, they are powerful concepts. That's why the mantra is so powerful. Consciousness is God. Consciousness is all. Such a statement formed out of concepts originates from the pure, essential, silent experience of consciousness as God, consciousness as all, consciousness as reality. And so those words have a power, and we can utilize them